I think we all have one of those crybaby backstories. And sometimes they come back to us in interesting ways. This video was born out of one of those crybaby backstories. If you've been paying close attention, you might have noticed a little golden ring on my finger. And that is because I recently got married. And I enjoyed it very much. Something you should know for the story, to make any sense, is that part of my crybaby backstory is that my mom and dad got a divorce. And because of that, I now have 4 half siblings. Me and my dad haven't been very close over the years. And because of that, I also haven't been very close with my siblings. But I've been wanting to change that. Which is why I was so happy that when I invited them to come to the wedding, they flew in all the way from Germany. Seeing them again was a very mixed experience. On the one hand, I got to see the adults they had grown into. But on the other hand, it reminded me of the children they used to be and how I had missed so much in between. It makes me feel a little like my dad, who missed so much of my life. And I feel a little guilty that I wasn't able to be part of theirs. But if they resented me for that, they sure did not show it. They were nothing short of amazing, and I'm so glad to have them be part of my life. And when my sister invited me to come to her birthday party, I knew they wanted me to be a part of theirs. Earlier that day, my sister had offhandedly mentioned how she had been wanting an Endgrain cutting board, and how apparently they were great because they keep your knife sharper. No clue if that's fact, but who am I to argue? One of the few things I know about her is that she's an amazing cook. And not to brag, but I'm not too bad of one either. This is something we both inherited from our father, and it makes me feel more connected to her. Anyways, when later that day she invited me to her birthday party, I remembered that conversation, and I knew that I had to make one as a special present for her, if I attended her party. You see, it wasn't as straightforward as just going. As I mentioned earlier, they had flown in all the way from Germany, which meant if I wanted to attend her birthday party, which, side note, was exactly 1 week after the wedding, I would not only have to fly to Germany, but also wouldn't be able to go on my honeymoon. But for reasons I won't get into here, the honeymoon was on shaky ground anyways. Don't worry, it was nothing to do with my amazing wife or siblings. So, we decided to do a sort of honeymoon out of visiting my siblings in Germany. Since short notice flights aren't the cheapest, we had to settle on a date only 5 days after the wedding. Which meant by the time we had actually decided we were going to Germany, had booked the flight and figured out accommodation, there was only 2 days left to actually make the presents. Yes, presents plural. Because it just so turns out that the day we were flying in, it was my brother's birthday. I told his mom what I was making for my sister in hopes that she would have an idea of what I could get him. And she said, please make him one too. He would love a cutting board. So I set out to do double my workload and make 2 Endgrain cutting boards in 2 days. Since time was so short, the wood you're seeing me use is actually from an old stair post that was left over from doing my house renovation. Because of that, it had lots of voids I had to fill in. But this video isn't really about explaining how to make an Endgrain cutting board. There are lots of little details I could go into, and I might do that in a future video if you're interested in that. Also at this point in the video, I'd assume you're either enjoying the content or at least are invested in the story. So please consider liking, subscribing, and maybe even leaving a comment. It is my favorite part after posting a video to read your opinions. Even if they are just complaining about how I'm doing everything wrong and gonna cut all my fingers and toes off. No, but really, I even appreciate those comments, because they're right. Not just for my own safety, but as a content creator, I have a sort of responsibility to teach you guys how to be safe. So whenever I see one of those comments, I actually do make an effort to be better. Or edit out when I do sketchy stuff. At the end of this video, you won't see so much content of the finished cutting boards. And the reason for that is, 1, that I finished oiling them the night before we were leaving for Germany in the morning. And 2, that my lovely wife is terrible at taking pictures. She doesn't actually watch my videos, so don't tell her I said that. But she does read the comments sometimes, so just say something along the lines of, "Wow, you have such an amazing wife." Okay, now that we have successfully lied to my wife, back to the story. Because the cutting boards turned out rather large, they didn't fit into our regular carry-ons, so we had one large checked luggage. The flight went fine. I was a little nervous because it had been a long time since I last made an Endgrain cutting board, and the last time I made one, it warped like crazy. And it's not like I could just fix that at the airport. But it ended up so much worse than I had thought. The airline lost the luggage. The presents I had worked so hard on were gone, and I was devastated. I know that it's not about presents, but about spending time together, but I still wanted to get them something special. Luckily, my amazing wife rushed right over to the lost luggage counter and talked to the guy. They could make no promises that they would be able to find it, or if they did, get it here in time, but at least there was hope. So, without a present in hand, we made our way to my brother's birthday party. It was really nice getting to spend some more one-on-one time with my siblings and getting to know them better. The next day we were over at their house again to have a little barbecue. And while we were eating, I got a call. They got the luggage and it was on its way. Relief. I was gonna be able to give them their presents after all. Now, of course I still didn't know if they had survived the flight, but at least they weren't lost. Once the luggage arrived, we checked it right away, and everything was perfect. Nothing warped, nothing broken. A second huge wave of relief. I hadn't wrapped them at home yet, because I didn't want the oil to soak through the paper. So I was able to show them to my stepmom. We loved them so much, she immediately responded with when her own birthday is. Quickly followed with the realization that she would in fact have access to the cutting boards, as my sister lives at home. Luckily my sister went out after the barbecue and was able to give my brother his present without her seeing and spoiling the surprise. He was in love with it and was so happy, but honestly not as excited and happy as my stepmom. She's such a sweet woman who has always accepted me into the family with open arms. A couple days later my sister's birthday rolled around and we were able to give her the second board, which of course she loved too, and excitedly presented to our dad with the words, "I've been asking you for one of these for ages. Look, Anna's made me one." I couldn't help but smile. After a party, we said our final goodbyes and made our way back to the UK. Overall, I'm really happy with how everything went. We had a really good time and I think they did too. And not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I think the boards turned out beautiful as well. And with that, thank you so much for listening to me rambling about my life, and let me know if you enjoy this type of content.